Hello and welcome to today's slightly different The After chapter, where I will be speaking to Jaap Robben. He is a Dutch author, longlisted for the International Booker Prize for his novel The Summer Brother. Okay, very good. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. And you?
I'm good. Is this a nervous day for you?
Not really. Yeah, of course tomorrow is the announcement of the shortlist. So then I will be, I think, get a little nervous, but yeah, you can't predict anything. So it's a very strange day actually. It's like it's a kind of a weather forecast, and there can come a storm, or it can be very, very silent, and
yeah.
That's so I don't know where to prepare for, but it's it's a good feeling.
It's probably an interesting experience for you, being longlisted.
Yeah, it's an amazing surprise actually, because the book wasn't published in the UK yet, so it was planned for May. So I wasn't even thinking of the Booker Prize, and so it came by, out of nothing for me, and it's like the book is taken up by a storm, and so many publishers are going to translate it right now in many more languages. So that's really a surprise. I was working on my new novel, and that's always a kind of holistic job on my own, just with my thoughts and my fantasy and nothing around. And then something like this pops up. It's a great experience.
So the book Summer Brother was also published in the Netherlands in September in 2018, I think. So that's like 2.5 years ago. And now, all of a sudden you have a listing, a nomination, a lot of interest, like you said, from all sorts of different countries and so on. How strange is that experience for you, given that you've probably that's quite in the past for you in a way, the book itself?
That's a good question. Yeah. It's mostly when books are translated, it's a couple of years later after it's published. So it's always a strange experience to talk about a book that's new for someone else, and for me, it's not so new anymore. But the book is always somewhere. So when the reading experience is so new for someone else, then it becomes new for me too. You know what I mean? It's because of the questions you will going to ask, but it's and at the same time, it's a strange experience that it's getting such a wide audience now, and that's so different than it was the last month. So yeah, book always feels like after some months when it's published, you put it in a box and you put it in a cupboard, and then it stays there. And now it's getting out, and it's
having
doing
a life of
things on his own, and I only have to watch. Yeah. He's becoming a teenager right now.
So speaking of the book, how would you describe this book in your own words?
Oh, where it's about, you mean?
Yeah, what it's about. Because I've heard very different descriptions from people who have read it, or, it's very interesting to hear what people see it's about. Some see the story of brothers, some see the story of a broken family, and so on.
Yeah. I know what you mean. For me, it's a story about brothers and about intimacy and about how you connect with someone who is not able to speak. And in advance, that was my goal, to write about someone who's not capable to use a language, or to let other people know what his needs are. So in the beginning, it's about that, but it's also about relationships that you cannot really trust, or that are unequal. So between the brothers, between the father and the son, and between the Brian and the neighbors, and there's always an inequality, and that because of that, there's also kind of yeah, you have there's a kind of a violence in there that you don't even want. It's like the violence when you're holding a really baby cat in your hands and you think, oh, I can kill it. When I do this, I can kill that cat. And that's that responsibility. I hate that responsibility personally. But about that feeling. For me, the book is about that feeling.
Oh, that's very interesting. You're primarily known as a children's author, and Summer Brother is a story that is narrated by a 13-year-old young boy. Was that a natural step for you? Because the book has been well received as well as by younger readers as adult readers.
Yeah, yeah. I published the book before Summer Brother.
Yeah.
Brat of Kachu.
Brato Kožuch.
Brat of Kachu. Yeah, I've got it here.
Yeah.
I for this interview, Brat of Kachu. But before that, I published You of Me to Love, and that was also about a teenager.
It was also about a teenager, yes.
Yeah. For me, writing about a young adult or a child, it feels really close to me. So I think that's my that are the closest characters. When I write about adults, I always find them a little boring in a way because they have jobs and they to pay the taxes and they have things to do, and a child has school and his family. But besides that, he's really free and his fantasies can go everywhere, and that's what I like about children. That you're really free in your life and in your imagination. And when an adult is so free in his imagination, we will call him insane or send him somewhere to a doctor. Or for a child, it's a very good thing, and that freedom helps me as an author too.
Yeah. So what was primarily your intention with trying? I don't know. I'm guessing was your intention to try to bring this subject closer to adults and younger readers. Was that your intention?
I actually don't think about readers when I'm writing, because I have some readers in my mind, because there's always someone I write the book for, not very specifically, but and that's what I keep in mind. But I don't think it is good for younger people or older people. Or it's like when I talk to my children, they are 4 and 1.5, and they feel it when I talk like an adult who talks to children.
They do. They always feel that. Yeah.
Explain them something. Yeah, and that's what readers feel too. So when I'm reading a book, when I did read books when I was a teenager, the books I liked the most were the books that I did not completely understand, because there's always something hidden in there, that kind of a world where I wasn't really allowed to enter yet. And that I always kept it in mind when I'm writing, that I'm not focusing just on younger people, or I don't talk differently to older people or younger people. And the story, it comes out from the story itself, actually.
So that was actually one of my questions, which you began to answer before. What was first? Was first this desire to write a story about brothers, or was first this wish to create a person like Lucien was, someone who has certain disabilities, and bring his story to people?
Actually, the second part of your ideas, I was thinking about Lucien. I wanted to write about a character that you hardly don't see in books, because they are mostly hidden somewhere, or a side character. And in advance, I wanted to write about Lucien as the main character, but it was quite difficult, because a character in a book needs to
express themselves.
Evolution in it. Yeah, express themselves, and that was really hard. So, and I didn't want to make him capable of expressing himself. So then I thought I need a brother or someone really close, not just a parent. And so from that on, it grew. But it started with Le Chien.
Hmm. I'm quite certain that this will bring the world of people with certain mental and physical disabilities closer to those who actually have no contact with them. Is that something that happened on its own for you? Is that something that you see as a very positive side effect, perhaps?
Yeah, in a way, while I was writing, I think I had a couple of times I thought about it that as a writer, one of my purposes in life, or everybody's doing something to the world, and the thing that I can do maybe is looking really closely at things and really focused. And
Hmm.
I thought people are always a little scared to look
Yeah.
at people with disabilities, physically, mentally, and I thought I don't feel scared to look at that or to really focus on that. And I thought when I really, really sharply focus on that and write about that and describe it, people read about that for 7, 8 hours, as long as the book takes, and then they are maybe a little more used to it. And then
Hmm.
afterwards, they will maybe not be so scared anymore, I hope. But that
Yeah.
was kind of a side goal. I hope that the book would do.
Yeah, I think that was quite successful actually. My experience was that I sort of flew through the book. I read it very quickly, but it has a very strong message. It has so much to say, and I was thinking about it for so long. I kept returning back and reading certain passages, and I also felt like I was kind of caressed by this kindness that Brian showed his brother. Um, and at the
Mm.
same times, while he's left to care for his brother, he's still a kid. He is
Yeah,
foolish, he's irresponsible because, of course, he's a child. And he's just being himself, although he is left with this huge responsibility. Was that difficult for you to
yeah.
achieve, to balance these two aspects?
Ooh. You mean the aspects of
Of him
taking
being a
care and
child and
being
taking care of his brother, yes.
Mm, I think that happened while I was writing, so I didn't happen. I I didn't do that intentionally. I think because um, his motivations to do something always come out from something deep in
Hmm.
himself, because he's what children feel. So they feel a motivation to do something, to go somewhere, or to and mostly they don't think then about that and just do it. And but on the other side, I wanted to write about the love and the commitment and the and out of that it just appeared. I think it was not something that I really focused on, but I wanted to write about non-intentional violence. So the
Hmm.
bad things that happen are not intentionally. He doesn't want to hurt his brother. His father Maurice also doesn't want to hurt his children or do something wrong, but is not capable of doing better,
Yeah.
actually. I think a lot of people are in life are um, not, they don't intentionally do something badly or hurt someone intentionally, but they are
Hmm.
not capable of doing better than what they do. And I think that inspired me the most while I was writing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because also, like, how did I was wondering, how did this need to tell this boy's story arise in you? Do you have any experience of your own with people like him with disabilities?
Well, not very closely, not in my family or something, but
Hmm.
uh, when I started the book, I talked to my parents, and then I realized that they were working in an institution when I was a child, and
Oh.
they have met each other there. Always when I did talk of did tell to friends that my parents did meet in an institution, they thought, oh, so they are both mentally and physically disabled, but
Hmm.
they work there. and I went with them as a child. So till I was, I think 4, till I went to school. They took me with them once or twice in a week for the whole day, and I had my own bed there, and I stayed there for the day, and I had lunch with them, and I played there, and I have some really sharp memories of that, and that memories always inspired me. Like one of the funny things was, I remember that when we drove there by car, and we came at the terrain where they lived, it was kind of in a forest, and then all the people who were walking there or playing in the garden or living there, you didn't see them somewhere else. They were always just there. You didn't see them in the swimming pool. You didn't see them in the supermarket. And that was also always a very sharp memory, that I realized they just belong in this really kind of small country, from 2 kilometers to 2 kilometers. And another sharp memory is, the funny thing is that as a child, you're always categorizing adults and actually people anyway. So when I look at my son, he's 4, and he looks at other people and saying that's a baby, that's me. Then he gets the older boys, then the really old boys, then the dads, then the granddads, and that's with female too. So babies, girls, older girls, mothers, grandmothers, and the older they get, the more you can trust them, because they know more and they have more experience. And but there it was completely the opposite. So there were women walking around looking like grandmothers, but they wanted to touch my teddy bear, or really muscled big man, but they were not able to speak. And so, and the funny thing was that they were always very happy that I was there, because I was the only one who knew to use the video recorder. And that was always a very, very funny thing. So that I was in a way smarter than they were, but they were older than I was. And that was always a very, very strange experience.
This sort of reminds me of that. There's a situation in the book where Selma, the girl, says she's not allowed past the entrance. And this reminds me of this, what you just said, you know, that they just have sort of a certain environment where they're allowed to be, or where they are, and not past those gates.
Yeah, they're always kind of locked in a way, and it's also a very safe place, and it's a very safe environment to walk around. You have your freedom, but the world outside is dangerous in a way. And
did you do any specific research for this book? Did you visit any institutions as such?
Yeah, I visited one, and actually that didn't help me so much, because I thought I need to look at how people behave or how they move, and I just added some details from that visit, like when you have a table that at sharp corners, they always put a round thing so that when you fall on it, you don't hurt.
Yeah.
There was one detail I took from that visit, but the most inspiration came actually from very close, more closer than going somewhere else, and it was looking at my own hands, for example. I was thinking about how does Le Chien hold things, or how does he grab things, and then I started looking at my own hands, and I thought, yeah, well, my hands are quite normal, and when I want to take my cup of coffee, I can just grab it, and this is made to pick it up this way. But when I was born with my hands like that, it's quite difficult to drink my coffee. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But we call this normal, and this is not normal. And when everybody's hands were like this, we would say that's very normal, and this is very not normal.
Yes, exactly.
And when I kept on looking how you move your hands, or how your fingers move, or when you can't move them or can't control them. That's so it was very close, actually.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Um, Certain things are also left unanswered in this book. Um, I sort of felt that that was used. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but this was the effect that it had on me. Um, it kind of illustrated that there are, certain things that are going on in the adult world that children don't necessarily
Mhm.
understand, but they feel it.
Yeah,
Was that
yeah,
what you meant to achieve?
yeah.
Because
That's
we don't find out answers to certain questions that, we as adults would probably want to know.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Or we ask, and yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. I was thinking that as a child, your adults keep away many things from you, so they don't tell everything, but you feel everything, and
Hmm.
that's always a um, very strange thing, that you feel everything, but you're not aware of what's really happening. So you feel if you can trust someone or not, or deep in yourself, you know if something is wrong, or
Hmm.
someone is imitating something, or someone is real or honest. And also when things happen, um, huge things in your life, people don't share everything with a child, and that's what I wanted to leave openly, that your Brian is feeling things and he's understanding things, but he just gets small pieces of it, and he makes his own story, and what is in between he fantasizes. And yeah, you Emil, the man who's living on the property,
Hmm.
he's not he's not telling everything, because you think, yeah, he's a child and I can't tell him everything.
Yeah.
So then
And
you
yet, on the
start
other hand, he tells him
fantasizing
more
what
than
is
he tells
wrong
the
with
adults.
him, or can I trust his loyalty or his friendliness or kindness, or is it better to do not? Or so the funny thing is that when I went to high schools to talk about the book, half of the class said, "Oh, it's a pedophile, awful pedophile," and the other half of the class said, "No, that very friendly man who helped him so much." And that's quite a difference, a pedophile, or
Yeah.
someone who helped him so much and is so friendly.
Yeah.
And I think because you get some pieces, and you can make different puzzles with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. That's, I think, a mark of a good book, actually.
Okay, I hope. Thank
um,
you.
can you say which parts were perhaps the most difficult for you to write, or the most difficult to get right, um, without, of course, giving too much away?
Yeah, I understand. Um, Actually, not the parts where. Ooh, what was the difficult part? The most difficult parts are actually not the parts where things happen, or when, because like Brian meeting Selma, the girl who lives in that institution, and she's 18, he's 13, and they feel a kind of love for each other. That was not so difficult, because I really had in mind what I wanted to write about, and I liked Selma immediately when she popped up in my imagination. I thought, oh, she's a really
Sweet.
nice character. I like her so much. Yeah, sweet and funny, and I was always smiling when I was writing about her. So that wasn't difficult, and mostly the scenes in between, to connect parts in the book, or that are always the most hard pieces, I think. Um, and the part I postponed the most was the line with Emil, I think, because that needed to be so subtle, and
Hmm.
that was the most difficult part, I think, the part that we actually just discussed,
Hmm.
because things need to be said, but not too clearly, and was the balance was quite
Yeah.
difficult to achieve, I think.
Yeah. What is your writing process actually like? Do you follow a routine? You
No,
mentioned that
just
you're
making a
writing
mess,
that
actually.
you're you mentioned you're writing a new book. So what does that look like?
Yeah. It's starting with a mess of ideas. So I always start. I try to start at the beginning. So in the beginning, I always start think this book I'm going to write very organized with a schedule on my wall, very everything tidied up. But then I've got some vague ideas, and I think, yeah, but it's for somewhere in the middle of the book. Or I started writing that, and then I think, oh, but I've got an idea for another scene, but that's not for this part of the book. Maybe just that's for in the beginning. And but then I think, oh, but I don't know that character so much. So then I start thinking about a main character, and I think, oh, but that side character is maybe more interesting. So then I started to write about the side character. I think, oh, but maybe then the side character, she's going to be the main character. And then I'm changing something, and then I have to change the scene that I wrote at the beginning. And so it's on my computer, it's always a really huge mess of documents and 3 sentences here and 50 sentences there and 3 pages, and then combining it. So
Puzzles.
and then after, I think it's really a puzzle. And then after 1 or 2 years of making a mess, then I'm starting to organize and combine things, and then it's growing into a book.
Do characters usually come first, like in this case, or do you develop them in advance? Do they develop through your writing? How does that come about?
Actually, they develop through my writing. So I start um, with some vague ideas about them or how they look like, or sometimes I see them in real walking around, and I just in a supermarket or in the forest when I'm walking,
Mhm.
think, he looks like that. Or I see a glimpse of someone on television just a couple of years ago, and we were in Portugal, and then I saw we were in a restaurant, and at a pump station, really awful restaurant, and there was a television on at the wall. And then I saw a man. I couldn't understand him, but he was saying something at the microphone. I thought, oh, that's exactly how Maurice looks like. Little shabby,
Wow.
little, oh that. And then I tried to keep that memory of him, that image, because I couldn't make a picture of the television because he was gone already, and I couldn't find him again. He was just someone who was asked some question at the street, and I thought, I need to keep that man in mind. So it always starts with some things, and the main important thing for me is always the landscape. Landscape is also
Hmm.
kind of a character.
Character of its own,
In my
yes.
previous novel, yeah, like the property where they live and the institution is kind of a character, and the kind of dusty landscape where they are. They live very remote, so they are not people cannot really see them, or the
Hmm.
police or child protection, or so that's always kind of a character.
That's very interesting now that you mentioned it, because how I remember I was experiencing this area where they live. There's never a very detailed description of that place, but I saw it so vividly in my head. You know, I saw there's. I think what you managed to do was you took some little pieces of physical things even, and you mentioned them in passing. They were lying there. This was there, you know, where he was at the trailer, there was something there, and it just sort of popped in my head. I had this entire view of this area where they lived with those two men as well, and the
Mm.
dogs and everything. That was very brilliantly done.
Oh, thank you very much.
So did you have an entire draft of this story, for example? Did you, when you sat down, did you know what was going to happen with the brothers? Did you know how it will go, or did that happen on its own while you were writing?
That happened while I was writing. I need to have in mind where it goes to, what's the end, or that can be a really small image or situation or a feeling, or sometimes it's a piece of music. I think it's in that piece of music how it needs to end, but I don't know what really needs to happen. And for this book, I did have that in mind, but not how it ended. So I had the image in
Mhm.
mind yeah, how can I explain it
The
without saying
connecting
too
of
much?
brothers,
But
perhaps?
um, the connecting of brothers was a very important thing. And well, that's at the end of the book. I don't know how it's translated in Slovenian, but it's Lucien always says muava.
Yeah,
I don't know if
for the
that's
dog, yeah.
really for the dog. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the book, he lays in his bed and then he says muava. And at the beginning of the book, when you look at Lucien, you can't understand him. You think he's just laying in his bed, making some noises, and you don't know what things mean that he's outing actually. And at the end of the book, when he says Mowawa, you know that he remembers something, and that he
Yeah,
remembers Brian, and he remembers the dogs, and maybe he remembers the summer, and that there is something in his imagination, and that there are memories inside him.
yeah,
And actually, I had that in mind, that I wanted you to know, to feel as a reader at the end of the book. Now I understand him better. So when you
yeah.
would start again at the beginning, you would notice more things of him. You would understand him better. You would think, oh, when he's grasping hair, he's nervous because there's
Mm-hmm.
someone new in the room. And when he started to move like this, and then he's thinking about Selma. And when he's saying Muwawa, he's meaning the
The dog.
dogs. And
Yeah.
that that was that was a thing I had in advance, that I wanted to be at the end of the book, that you understand what Muwawa
Yeah.
means.
That was very beautiful. Um, how does it feel for you when the book is finished? When any book is finished, does it take you a long time to dive into a new story?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. After this book, I was really tired because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be finished in May, and then it wasn't sharp enough, and then I postponed it to July, and then I missed something, and I didn't get it done, and my publisher was pushing a little because they already planned it to publish, and I think, oh no, I don't know. And then it was at the beginning of August, so we postponed our holiday, and everything. I kept on writing and changing things. In the beginning of August, it was finished, and I was extremely tired, and I thought, oh, I can't do anything from now. So then it was a really warm summer, and I walked into the garden, and I just laid on the grass, and there was no one home, and I looked at the clouds, and I did send the book to my publisher, and it was the final draft. And then I thought, oh, I looked at the clouds and the trees, and I thought, oh, from now on, I can look at things without thinking, can I use this for my book? And it was kind of a really relief that I just could look around without need to think, is this useful?
Mm-hmm.
And
Go
it
back
really
to your
took some
life in a
months
way.
to, yeah, actually, yeah. And it took some months to get the book out of my system. And
Mm-hmm.
um, we had a daughter 2 years ago, and I didn't want to write in her first year because I'm always really focused and distracted in a way, so I'm not really there, and I didn't want that to happen when she was so small. And now she's going to the kindergarten, and then I think, oh, now I can, when she's not here and our son is not here, I can focus on other things. And I um yeah, I can focus much better, and I don't feel guilty when I'm too focused.
Yeah, of course. Can you tell me a little bit about your next book, the one that you're working on right now?
Ooh, then you're kind of the first person
Ooh.
will it will be, what can I tell about it? I'm kind of in the mess situation
I
yet,
was just going to ask,
right
yes.
now. So yeah, so it's kind of a mess on my computer, but what the main thing is, and what the most important thing is, that it's a very sad and cruel situation, but in the Netherlands, especially in the Catholic part of the Netherlands, the south, when children were born and died immediately in
Mm-hmm.
the mid 50s last century, they were always buried without a funeral. So when they were born, they were taken immediately from the mother. They put them in a box, in a shoe box or something like that, and then the dads always had to go by bike or by car to a cemetery, and they had to burn their children at night on their own in the
Oh.
dark at a really small piece of land beside the cemetery when it was not baptized. That piece of land, and there wasn't a grave, there was nothing, and they were not allowed to talk about that anymore. And that happened
Mhm.
for 20, 30 years, and that touches me so much that women gave birth, and they expected to have a lively child, and they prepared everything in their house for their child, and then they gave birth to a child that didn't survive, and for what reason? And they didn't have they couldn't have a look at it, or they
Mhm.
couldn't hold it, or nothing was taken immediately, and they didn't know where it was buried. And I did read a lot about that, and the main thing that inspired me so much was that they, as a couple, also didn't talk about that anymore in their life.
Mhm.
So they took it with them, and everybody said, no, forget it, get a new child, it's better to forget it. But when they get older, 80s, 85, 90, mostly for the women, it comes back, and
They never really
there's always
forget.
sadness. Nay, of course they will never forget, and that's what the book will be about,
Wow.
I think.
Okay. Okay. Very excited.
So very, very, very funny book.
Yes, very humorous.
Very humorous, yeah.
Congratulations again on your wonderful novel and all the accolades and all the recognition. I thank you very deeply for bringing such an important story into our lives. And
Thank you.
thank you also for the time you took to talk to me today. It was very,
You're very
very,
welcome.
thank you. It was very nice talking to you. And I hope that soon I'll be able to talk to you again, perhaps about your next book.
That would be great, and maybe in real, when COVID
Maybe
is
in
over,
real
and
life we can drink a cup of coffee or something. Yes.
in Ljubljana.
Thank you so
That
much.
would be really nice. Thank you
Thank you
for
so
a good
much. And good
question.
luck tomorrow. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.